Welcome back to Edzi, your personal AI tutor, and today we are revising Class 10 English for CBSE Class 10 with the chapter A Letter to God from First Flight. This is an extended episode, so we will spend roughly 30 to 60 minutes learning calmly and properly. I am Gaurav and with me is Swati. Keep a notebook nearby if you have one, but passive listening is also completely fine. Once, a student named Ananya from Jaipur told us she understood the story but lost marks in questions on irony and grammar. So, today we will cover the story, concepts, questions, vocabulary, language work, and exam tips in one connected revision.
And let us make this feel like a study session, not a lecture. I will keep asking you to predict, recall, and examine Lencho's choices. Before we begin, think about this question. If a person has complete faith in God, but human beings are the ones who actually help that person, what might happen? Do not answer immediately. Keep that thought with you, because the ending of a letter to God turns exactly this expectation upside down.
Our learning map is simple. First, we will follow Lencho from hope to disappoint. Then we will understand the postmaster's response, the central irony, the characters, and the conflicts between humans and nature and between humans themselves. After that, we will revise important words, the different uses of hope, non defining relative clauses, negatives for emphasis, and metaphors. Finally, we will practice answer frames and a short challenge. Let us begin with the picture created at the start of the chapter.
एक सेकंड पॉज करके सोचो. What kind of place would make a farmer watch the sky throughout the morning? The story begins with a house, the only one in the entire valley, sitting on the crest of a low hill. From there, one could see the river and a field of ripe corn dotted with flowers. The field promised a good harvest, but the earth needed one essential thing: a downpour, or at least a shower.
The setting is not decorative only. It establishes Lencho's complete dependence on nature. He knows his fields intimately, and he keeps looking towards northeast because he expects rain. His hope is practical as well as emotional. Rain means water for the crop, and a good crop means food and financial security for the family. When we write about the setting, connect the valley, the field, and the sky to Lencho's livelihood and expectations.
The family is also introduced through small details. The woman is preparing supper, the older boys are working in the field, and the smaller children are playing near the house. This gives us a picture of a working farming household. When Lento says that they are really going to get some water, the woman replies, "Yes, God willing." That small response prepares us for the important connection between rain, hope, and faith.
Now, test your understanding. What did Lencho hope for? The precise answer is that he hoped for rain because his ripe corn needed water and he expected a harvest. Do not write only he hoped for money. Money becomes important later after the crops are destroyed. In an examination, the sequence matters. First comes hope for rain and harvest, then the storm, then the letter requesting money.
What do you think Lencho feels when the first large drops finally fall? He goes out simply to enjoy the rain on his body. Then he calls the drops new coins. The large drops are 10-cent pieces, and the little ones are fives. Your answer should explain the comparison, not merely repeat it. For Lencho, rain is valuable because it promises a prosperous harvest, just as coins represent wealth.
Lencho looks at the field with satisfaction. The ripe corn and flowers are covered by a curtain of rain. At this moment, the rain appears entirely positive. The description creates a brief feeling of security, but the weather changes suddenly. A strong wind begins to blow, and very large hailstones fall along with the rain. Notice the sharp movement in the story. Blessing becomes danger without warning.
The children initially run out to collect the hailstones, which resemble frozen pearls. Lencho hopes the bad weather will pass quickly, but it does not. For an hour, hail falls on the house, garden, hillside, cornfield, and the whole valley. The field becomes white, as if covered with salt. Not a leaf remains on the trees. The corn is destroyed, and the flowers disappear. Can you feel how complete the destruction is?
This is the first major conflict. Human beings against nature. Lencho has worked hard and knows his fields well. But he cannot control the hailstorm. His labor, expectation, and harvest are all suddenly placed at the mercy of weather. A strong answer should show that nature is not presented as something Lencho can negotiate with. The storm is powerful, sudden, and destructive, while the family is vulnerable.
Let us check the emotional change. Before the storm, Lencho is satisfied and hopeful. During the hailstorm, he becomes frightened and wishes that it would pass. After it stops, he is filled with sadness. He tells his sons that even a plague of locusts would have left more than this, and that the hail has left nothing. His words show not just damage, but the collapse of his plans for the entire year.
That night is sorrowful. The family feels that all their work has been for nothing, that none can help them, and that they may go hungry. These statements are important because they show the human consequences of the storm. The destroyed corn is not simply a damaged field. It represents the family's food, labor, and future. In an answer, use the chain of cause and effect clearly.
Now, I want you to predict the next step. When the family says no one can help, what single hope remains in their hearts? Think before listening further. The answer is help from God. This does not remove the sadness, but it gives Lencho a direction. He does not remain helpless for long. His faith becomes so strong that he treats communication with God as a practical possibility.
Lencho thinks of God as someone whose eyes see everything, even what is deep in a person's conscience. The chapter calls him an ox of a man, meaning he works with great physical strength and endurance. At the same time, the text points out that he knows how to write. This detail matters because his physical labor and his written appeal come together in the letter.
On the following Sunday at daybreak, Lencho begins writing. He asks God for 100 pesos so that he can sow his field again and live until the next crop comes. Notice his reasoning. He is not asking for money for luxury. He connects the amount to restarting cultivation and feeding the family until the crop arrives. That makes the letter an expression of desperation, hope, and practical need.
He writes to God on the envelope, puts the letter inside, takes it to town, places a stamp on it, and drops it into the mailbox. The action is simple, but it is also extraordinary because Lencho never doubts that the letter can reach its addressee. The story invites us to ask whether faith means believing without proof or whether it can also mean acting with hope during a crisis.
एक सेकंड पॉज करके सोचो, does Lencho write to God because he has no faith in people or because his faith in God is stronger than every other option? The chapter clearly foregrounds his unwavering faith in God. At this stage, we should not call him foolish too quickly. He has suffered a real loss, and his letter comes from a genuine need. Judgment becomes more complicated after the money arrives.
The postman reads the address and laughs heartily because he has never seen such an address during his career. The postmaster also laughs at first, but almost immediately becomes serious. He is struck by Lencho's faith and wishes he had faith like that. This change in the postmaster is important. He moves from amusement to respect, and then from respect to action.
Why does the postmaster decide to answer the letter? He wants to protect Lencho's faith in God. He understands that if Lencho receives no response, his confidence may be shaken. But the postmaster also needs more than goodwill, ink, and paper. He needs money. This is where the story quietly shifts from a supernatural expectation to very human kindness.
The postmaster asks his employees for money, contributes part of his own salary, and receives help from several friends for an act of charity. Even with these efforts, he cannot collect the full 100 pesos. He sends Lencho a little more than half, which the chapter identifies as 70 pesos. The amount is less important than the effort behind it, but remember the exact figure because it is central to the ending.
The postmaster puts the money in an envelope addressed to Lencho and adds a letter signed with one word, God. Why does he sign it that way? Not to take credit, but to preserve Lencho's belief that God has answered him. It is a compassionate decision, though it also creates the misunderstanding that drives the conclusion. The postmaster's kindness is sincere. but Lencho does not recognize its human source.
The following Sunday, Lencho comes earlier than usual to ask whether there is a letter for him. The postman hands it over, while the postmaster watches with the satisfaction of someone who has performed a good deed. Lencho shows not the slightest surprise at seeing the money. His confidence is so complete that receiving help seems natural to him. The surprising response comes when he counts the amount.
Let us check the sequence. Who read Lencho's first letter? A postman who also helped at the post office showed it to the postmaster. What did the postmaster do? He collected money from employees, gave some of his salary, received contributions from friends, and sent 70 pesos with a letter signed God. If your answer includes only that he sent money, it misses the effort behind the action.
At this point, you can use Edzee for a focused out instead of leaving a confusing idea unresolved. Ask an exact question such as, why is the postmaster's action important to the irony? A step-by-step explanation can help you separate the event, the intention, and Lencho's interpretation. That is useful active recall. First attempt the answer yourself, then check whether your reasoning includes all three parts.
Now the crucial turn. Lencho becomes angry because he receives 70 pesos instead of the 100 he requested. He believes God could not have made a mistake and could not have denied him what he asked for. This tells us that Lencho's faith is not weak. In fact, it is absolute. But absolute faith leads him to distrust the very people who have helped him.
Lencho asks for paper and ink, writes another letter, buys a stamp, and posts it. He tells God that only 70 pesos reached him and asks for the rest. Then he adds that the money should not be sent through the mail because the post office employees are a bunch of crooks. This final accusation is the source of the story's situational irony.
What exactly is the irony? The people Lencho calls crooks are the people who collected and sent the money. He trusts that God sent the money, but he fails to recognize the kindness of the postmaster and the others. The expected result would be gratitude towards the postal workers. Instead, they are blamed. The situation is strange and amusing because Lencho's interpretation is the opposite of what the reader knows.
Be careful with one common mistake. Do not write that Lencho steals the money or that post office takes it. The story says Lencho thinks the postal employees have taken the remaining amount. This is his belief, not an established fact. Also, do not say that the postmaster sends exactly half. He sends 70 pesos, which is a little more than half of the requested 100.
Was Lencho surprised to find a letter containing money? No. His confidence in God is so strong that he shows no surprise. What made him angry? The fact that the amount was less than 100 pesos. Did he try to discover who sent the money? No, because he already believed it came from God. He never considers that ordinary people could have helped him.
The ending does not simply mock faith. It also makes us examine expectation. Lencho expects divine help in a precise amount, and when reality does not match the amount, he assumes that someone interfered. His faith gives him hope, but it also prevents him from seeing human kindness. This tension makes the chapter richer than a simple story about belief or charity.
Let us discuss Lencho carefully. He is hardworking because he works intensely in the fields. He is hopeful because he expects rain and a good harvest. He is unquestioning in his faith because he never doubts God's response. He may also be described as naive, comical, or ungrateful when he accuses the post office employees. A balanced character sketch should include both his admirable faith and his limited understanding.
Would you call Lencho greedy? That word needs care. He asks for 100 pesos because he needs to sow the field again and support the family until the crop comes. The source allows readers to debate qualities such as greedy, naive, stupid, ungrateful, selfish, comical, and unquestioning. In an answer, do not attach a label without explanation. Choose a quality and support it with his action or reaction.
I would call him naive more confidently than greedy. He has a simple, unquestioning belief that God will provide the exact help requested. But I also understand why a student might call him ungrateful after the second letter. Would you agree, Gaurav, that the writer wants us to hold two ideas together rather than praise or condemn Lencho completely?
Yes, with one clarification. The chapter presents Lencho's faith sympathetically because it gives him hope after a devastating loss. At the same time, the ending exposes the comic and unfair result of his unquestioning expectation. So the safest answer is balanced. Lencho is hardworking, hopeful, and deeply faithful, but also naive and unable to recognize human kindness. That kind of balanced judgment is stronger than a one-word character label.
Now consider the postmaster. He begins by laughing, but he soon becomes serious and admiring. He organizes help, contributes his salary, and tries to protect Lencho's faith. He is amiable or friendly and pleasant, but more importantly, he is compassionate and generous. The story does not give him a long speech. His actions reveal his character. In a character question, actions are your evidence.
The postman also contributes to the movement of the story. He reads the unusual address, shares it with the postmaster, and later hands Lencho the envelope. The post office becomes a place of communication, but it also becomes the site of misunderstanding. The workers are treated as dishonest by Lencho even though the postmaster and others have acted with kindness. That contrast supports the story's irony.
The chapter presents two kinds of conflict. The first is between humans and nature. Lencho's work and harvest are destroyed by the hailstorm. The second is between humans themselves. Lencho's judgment clashes with the post office employees' good intentions. Can you state the second conflict without saying that the employees actually steal anything? Correct. It is a conflict created by misunderstanding, suspicion, and different interpretations of the same event.
We are now entering the theme section. The first major theme is faith. Lencho's belief in God remains firm even after the hailstorm. He writes directly to God and expects a response. The second theme is hope. Before the storm, hope is connected to rain and harvest. After the storm, hope becomes the belief that God will provide a way forward. Faith and hope help him continue, even though his interpretation later becomes ironic.
The third theme is human kindness. The postmaster's response shows that compassion can come through ordinary people. He does not want Lencho's faith to be shaken, so he gathers money. This creates an interesting question. If human beings provide the help, can that help still be understood as answer to prayer? The story does not give a direct philosophical answer. It leaves us to reflect on the relationship between divine belief and human action.
Another important idea is the contrast between expectation and reality. Lencho expects 100 pesos and receives 70. He expects the post office to deliver God's response faithfully, but he imagines the employees have taken the rest. The reader knows that the missing amount was never stolen. This difference between what the reader knows and what Lencho believes creates suspense, humor, and irony at the same time.
A likely exam question may ask you to explain whether the story is about faith, human kindness, or both. A strong answer should not choose only one. Lencho's faith drives the action, while the postmaster's kindness makes the response possible. The ending joins them through irony. Lencho credits God but insults the human helpers. So the chapter explores faith and kindness together, while also questioning how expectations shape judgment.
अब तक हम first major idea cover कर चुके हैं, the story's plot and its central meaning. Let us quickly recall the chain. A farmer expects rain. Rain becomes a hailstorm. The crops are destroyed. Lencho writes to God. The postmaster gathers money. Lencho receives 70 pesos. He blames the postal employees for the missing amount. If you can reproduce this chain, you have the skeleton of a complete summary.
Let us slow this down and clarify some vocabulary. Crest means the top of a hill. Lencho's house is on the crest of a low hill. The field is described as being draped in a curtain of rain, where draped means covered as though with cloth. Locusts are insects that fly in large swarms and destroy crops. These words help you visualize the setting and the danger to the farmer.
Peso is the currency mentioned in the story. Conscience means an inner sense of right and wrong. Amiable means friendly and pleasant. Contentment means satisfaction. These meanings are useful for comprehension questions and character analysis. For example, the postmaster watches with contentment after performing a good deed. That word shows his private satisfaction, not pride or a desire for public praise.
The chapter also introduces storm words: gale, whirlwind, cyclone, hurricane, tornado, and typhoon. Their exact descriptions differ according to the nature and location of the storm. A gale is an extremely strong wind. A cyclone is a violent tropical storm in which strong winds move in a circle. A tornado has a funnel shaped cloud at its center. Do not mix these words casually in a vocabulary answer.
Hailstones are small balls of ice that fall like rain, and a hailstorm is a storm in which hailstones fall. The story storm is not just ordinary rain. It includes strong wind and very large hailstones, and it continues for an hour. That detail explains why the whole valley is affected. In a short answer, mention the hailstones and their complete destruction of the cornfield.
Quick check. If I say Lencho's field was white as if covered with salt, what does that image tell you? It tells you that the hailstones covered the field so densely that the crop seemed to disappear beneath a white layer. If I say a plague of locusts would have left more, what does Lencho mean? He means the hailstorm has caused an even more complete destruction than the damage he imagines locusts would cause.
The word hope is used in more than one way. In I hope it passes quickly, hope is a verb meaning that you wish for something to happen. In there was a single hope, hope is a noun meaning a chance or possibility of something good. This distinction is directly taught through the chapter. In an examination, identify the grammatical role by looking at how the word functions in the sentence.
The exercise gives several shades of meaning. I hope so expresses a wish that something good may happen. I hope you do not mind is a polite way of showing concern. New hope means a feeling that something good will probably happen. Hoping against hope means wishing for something, although it is very unlikely. Given up hope means people have stopped believing that the good result will happen.
Now let us revise non-defining relative clauses. They provide additional information about a person or thing whose identity is already clear. In the sentence about Lencho, the clause beginning with who gives extra information about him. Such a clause usually has a comma before and after it, or dashes may be used. The common relative pronouns introduced here are who, whom, whose, and which.
एक सेकंड पॉज करके सोचो. In the sentence, the woman who was preparing supper replied. Is the clause needed to identify which woman? No. The woman is already identified, so the clause merely adds information. That makes it non-defining. The commas are not decoration. They help show that the information is extra. This is a common grammar point. So do not omit the punctuation when you write such a sentence.
Sometimes the relative pronoun and the verb are hidden. The opening description can be expanded from the house, the only one in the entire valley, sat on the crest of a low hill to the house, which was the only one in the entire valley, sat on the crest of a low hill. The shorter form still carries the additional information, even though which and was are not written.
Let us practice mentally. I often go to Mumbai. Mumbai is the commercial capital of India. Joining them with which gives. I often go to Mumbai, which is the commercial capital of India. The second part gives extra information about Mumbai. Another pattern is my mother, who cooks very well, is going to host a television show on cooking. The relative pronoun must match the relationship shown in the sentence.
The next language point is negatives for emphasis. Words such as no, not, and nothing can show absence or contradiction. This year we will have no corn shows the absence of corn. The hail has left nothing emphasizes the complete absence of a crop. These are not raindrops. They are new coins contradicts the ordinary description of rain in order to emphasize its value to Lencho.
But sometimes a negative expression does not simply mean absence. It intensifies an idea. Lencho had done nothing else but see the sky means he had done only that. The man went out for no other reason than to feel the rain means that was his only reason. He showed not the slightest surprise means he showed no surprise at all. Look for the meaning behind the negative structure.
The chapter also teaches metaphors. A metaphor transfers a quality or feature from one thing to another. The clouds are compared with huge mountains because of their mass or hugeness. The raindrops are compared with coins because they represent value and possible wealth to Lencho. Hailstones resemble silver coins and frozen pearls. These comparisons reveal how Lencho experiences weather through the economic life of a farmer.
There is also the expression an ox of a man. It compares Lencho to an ox because of his strength and hard work. The comparison is not saying that Lencho is literally an animal. It highlights a quality. When identifying a metaphor, write both parts, what is compared and which quality is transferred. Merely listing the metaphor without explaining the shared quality may not fully answer the question.
A question may ask why the raindrops are called new coins. Your answer can follow this frame. Lencho sees rain as coins because the rain will help his corn grow, and a good harvest will bring him wealth and security. The large drops represent tens and pieces, and the smaller drops represent fives. This connects the image to Lencho's hopes, rather than treating it as an isolated poetic comparison.
Another question may ask why the hailstones are compared with silver coins or frozen pearls. Be precise. At first, the children see the hailstones as attractive objects and run out to collect them. But for Lencho, the same weather becomes destructive. The contrast between beautiful appearance and terrible effect increases the emotional force of the storm. The children's excitement and Lencho's fear occur within the same scene.
For a 5-mark answer on the irony, use a clear structure. Begin with Lencho's complete faith in God. Explain that the postmaster and others collect 70 pesos to help him. Then state that Lencho believes God sent money but the post office employees stole the rest. Conclude by explaining that the people he calls crooks are actually the people who helped him. This is the unexpected opposite of what we expect.
For a character sketch of the postmaster, use action words: amused, inspired, determined, charitable, and kind. Explain that he first laughs, then admires Lencho's faith, collects contributions, gives part of his salary, and signs the response as God. For Lencho, use a balanced frame: hardworking and hopeful, deeply faithful, but naive and ungrateful in the final reaction. Evidence is what makes a character answer convincing.
There is also a money order activity connected with the post office. The chapter asks students to notice the money order form, the section for official use, and the acknowledgement. It introduces words such as counter, counter clerk, appropriate, acknowledgement, counterfoil, and record. The activity helps connect the story's letter and money to a real process of sending money. Treat this as a language and practical context activity, not as an extra plot event.
The chapter includes speaking and listening work as well. Students are invited to discuss a time when they felt that only a miracle could help and how the problem was solved. There is also a listening letter written from Kanpur to a reader named Aarti. These activities remind us that English learning is not only about remembering the story. It includes understanding situations, expressing personal experiences, and listening for details.
We are entering the final section now. Let us make one compact mental map. Setting: a house on a low hill and a ripe cornfield. Problem: a hailstorm destroys the crop. Response: Lencho writes to God for 100 pesos. Human kindness: the postmaster gathers 70 pesos. Irony: Lencho blames the helpers for the missing money. Language: hope, relative clauses, negatives, metaphors, and storm vocabulary.
Final challenge 1. Explain in 2 or 3 sentences why Lencho did not try to find out who had sent the money. Your answer should say that his faith in God was complete. So he assumed the money came from God and did not suspect any human source. Challenge 2. Name the 2 conflicts. They are humans against nature, shown by the hailstorm, and humans against humans, shown by Lencho's suspicion of the postal employees.
Final challenge 3. Write a short answer on the theme of expectation and reality. Begin with Lencho expecting a good harvest, then expecting exactly 100 pesos, and finally expecting that God alone had sent the money. Contrast this with the reality that the postmaster and others had helped him, yet he called them crooks. Keep your answer focused on the contrast and the irony.
And one common mistake to avoid: do not reduce the story to the statement that Lencho has faith and the postmaster is kind. That is true, but incomplete. Mention how the hailstorm creates the crisis, how the letter shows unwavering faith, how the 70 pesos reveal human kindness, and how the accusation creates situational irony. Four connected points will give your answer clarity and depth.
Your next step is small and concrete. Close your notes and retell the chapter aloud in 6 sentences. Using these anchors: rain, hailstorm, hope, letter, 70, pesos, irony. Then write one paragraph on Lencho and one on the postmaster, using evidence from their actions. If you want to test yourself further, use Etsy for active recall or a focused question practice session rather than simply rereading the summary.
So, the most important ideas are clear. Lench's faith gives him hope. Nature destroys his harvest. The postmaster responds with kindness. And the ending exposes the gap between reality and expectation. Remember the 70 pesos, the two conflicts, the meaning of situational irony, and the difference between a helpful person and Lencho's judgment of that person. Thank you for revising A Letter to God with us. Keep your answer balanced, keep questioning, and return to Etsy whenever a doubt needs patient, step by step solving. We will meet in the next lesson.